Have you ever lost yourself in a kiss? I mean pure psychedelic inebriation. Not just lustful petting, but transcendental metamorphosis when you become aware that the greatness of this being was breathing into you. Licking the sides and corners of your mouth, like sealing 1,000 fleshy envelopes filled with the essence of your passionate being, and then opened by the same mouth and delivered back to you over and over again. A kiss that confirms that the universe is aligned, that the world's greatest resource is love, and maybe even that God is a woman. This quote is by Saul Williams, and I remember the first time I read it, I was 15 years old. And for the longest time, the only kind of love that I could focus on or understand was the pursuit of my person, like my number one romantic partner slash best friend slash everything in life. Now I understand that this notion of love is something that can have its downsides, and it's definitely not the most popular cultural narrative. We live in a very interesting moment in time where love is kind of confusing. So in today's episode, I really want to talk about love, but not just the romantic kind, because there's a lot of different types of love out there that are beautiful. There's also a lot of love out there that is hurt, and there's a lot of love out there that isn't as expressed as it should be. And the most interesting part about this is right before I was about to record this episode, I had to center myself. I didn't write any sort of plan. I'm just going with it. I'm just letting my mouth hole say words and see what comes out, because the first time I tried to script my episode on love, if you go all the way back to the beginning of this series, the first episode I ever did was What is Love? And I read from a script that I wrote word for word. So this time I thought it would be different. So I got myself in a good mindset, a good headspace, and right when I sat here to record and I clicked the button, all of a sudden the crew that takes care of the grounds around my home appeared and started making very loud noises. I couldn't help but to laugh, but then get really, really upset. So usually when that happens and I need to calm myself down and ground and understand, I sometimes pulled my tarot cards or angel cards, oracle cards. And so I pulled this guy, which the screen's backwards, but it says, "Be free." So I'm going to read from this. Freedom has many meanings to many people. However, this card is about mental, emotional, and spiritual freedom. Many of us feel trapped in society, fearful of saying, doing, and even feeling what is trying to express itself. This angel helps you learn to let go of the conditioning, the control, and the boundaries that have been imposed on your free will. Your true self, the expression of your unique gifts, must be set free and allowed to expand and grow. By honoring what is in your heart, you are able to live your life fully, exploring the wonders of your heart and your imagination. This leads to a full life in which both opportunities and challenges become means for you to grow and express yourself even further. When you are able to freely express yourself without fear or shame, you empower others to do the same. So, I have a lot to say about love, and I get the feeling I might say some things that I'm not necessarily prepared to say. I think one of the hardest pills to swallow in life is that love is the opposite of fear. So if you are making decisions out of fear, you're reacting out of fear, and you're not taking a second to just take a breath, ground yourself and come back to love before you react to things, you might think you're loving someone, but you're not. And there have been a lot of junctions in my life where I've had to cut people out because I allowed them into my space thinking that love was one thing and they were just giving me love, hard version of love. But now I know, even if they don't know, that that was not love. And I know I've been guilty of the exact same thing. I want to tell you a story about why I got into burlesque. So I was 19 years old when I took my first class at a pole studio. And I very quickly became an instructor. And then I started teaching burlesque because no one else in the studio was. They were in desperate need of more spaces to be filled, and the curriculum was there. And I learned it, and it became my life. And I very quickly realized that all of my best acts were to love songs. And so my tagline became that I was Aphrodite's marvelous mistress. So I toured the country and handed out love letters everywhere I went. And they never were about me, you know, like it wasn't like me professing my feelings towards anyone. It was more so like just like a pump me up, like you're great, you're full of love, you're full of everything you need, you got this. But it wasn't as personal as it seemed. I fooled even myself into thinking that I was being very vulnerable with what I was doing. But the truth of the matter is that I haven't really known vulnerability until now, because I didn't really know what it meant to be truly free and truly acting in a place and source of love. One time I dated someone who said that he didn't believe in unconditional love. And he had a point to a sense, right? If someone beats the shit out of you, do you still love them? It sounds like, you know, if you want to take a more victimhood route, no, of course not. They fucked you over, they fucked you up. If it's all about you. Then the question got a lot more complicated, and the answers become more complicated when you're like, oh, well, what if it's a parent? What if it's another family member? What if the situation was in the long term to help you? So for example, I heard a story of someone I used to know who smashed the window of his girlfriend's car because he didn't want her to drive home drunk. And so she called the cops and had him sent to jail. Was that a kind, loving act? Or, I mean, he saved her. It's complicated. There's no answer you can sit here and honestly say one side or the other. I'm not defending these actions by any way, any means. I just think it's a very interesting question to ask. Look, when you're born into a family that doesn't understand love and doesn't teach you love well, you're gonna have a warped perception of love. And you're not gonna know that you have a warped perception of love until you've seen better or have the ability to magically believe in better, having faith. It won't feel like love at first because it triggers the ego in order to heal and expand. Oh my God, the maintenance guy came back. Stay tuned. So here's the way I like to look at love now. The unhealed version of love and the healed version of love. I don't want to say one is better than the other because I think that it's really a very necessary part of being human to experience something that's not love, learn from it, and then become better at love. If we were already perfect at it, wow, we would be living in utopia. But I think that would negate some very important human experiences because love is unfortunately not going to be everywhere all the time 24/7. Entropy is a very real reality, right? Chaos is the natural order of the universe. So in order to balance, you can't have love all the time, right? So healed versus unhealed. I like to think of a healed version of love, at least from the divine feminine, being a peaceful goddess, versus an unhealed love being more frantic and overstimulated. So when we're born into our society, the matrix, we have a lot of forced anxieties, forced tensions that are put upon us by others, right? We feel the need to regulate other people's emotions because that's what we're taught. People pleasing, doing things that go against our own best interest, sitting down and shutting up. Or maybe it's the exact opposite, being too controlling, being too forceful, basically just not being magnetic in and of itself. A peaceful goddess, a divine feminine, is magnetic. She chooses love within herself in order to amplify it within the world around her. And I think the thing about this that was most confusing for me, and we're all still working on, is that in order to bring an abundance of love into life, it's important to be it, to become magnetic, right? So that means that even in those situations that are really painful, people hurt us, that doesn't give us the right to cower and not be courageous in the face of love. Some examples of this can be, for example, if you have a not so great relationship with family, maybe they did something really bad to hurt you. It's like, well, they're your family. Shouldn't you love them through everything? Aren't there people who, should get that all access pass to you, essentially? And the answer is you can still love someone and cut them out of your life. In fact, a lot of people who've left my life, it wasn't out of a lack of love. I've even told them that. But that doesn't change the fact that it comes in different forms, right? So it's hard to see. Now, that's a really sad version of love, right? When it doesn't work the way we think it should look. It's not fluffy, it's not cozy, it's not full of hugs and kisses. Sometimes it is that space, that sacred space. But other times, it's closing the space. So let's say you love someone and you're not telling them. What are you doing? What are you doing? The world could use more love. Look, there's never really going to be a right or perfect time to act on feelings, right? And it's always a good idea to give people love. Big caveat here, though. Healed love is not possessive. Healed love does not have expectation, but it is open and honest. So, if you love someone, tell them you love them. But just make sure you don't have expectations beyond it. It's not a conditional love. Otherwise, you might be wasting your time as well as theirs. And of course, this is very easy to look at the romantic side of things and feel. But this goes for all relationships too, right? Like, let people know you love them. You never know what's going to happen. One last thing I kind of want to say here, maybe two. Number one is that the sun hurts to look at, right? Even though the sun is technically on the opposite side of my house right now, which is why I film during this time of day, it's still really bright out. Even though I'm not looking directly at it, it almost hurts my face. And then when I'm driving outside, living in the desert, it's a lot. It sometimes feels like acid is being poured on my skin. But when I look at the moon, it doesn't hurt. I don't need to put on sunglasses. I could stand right in it. I could be cold. It doesn't do nearly as much, right? I like to think that love is source. It's source of everything. And therefore, the sun is a really great way to look at love. It is powerful. Unarguably much lighter, much brighter than the moon that can only be seen in darkness, right? And so you could have one sun and it will bring you more light and more joy than a million moons. So when things don't work out, maybe it was just a moon and not a sun. Number 2, I'm going to start by reading a little poem I heard in a podcast. Meeting you caused me to meet my own soul. You left an impression, an ancient mark, and this was remembering. That one got to me. And, all belief systems aside, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But energy is neither created nor destroyed. And the fact that time ticks in the way that we understand it is only because we are in these human forms with this specific human brain. But that doesn't mean that's how all of existence works, right? If you go into different dimensions, naturally time becomes a variable that is no longer linear. This is basic math, by the way. That part isn't even spiritual, but we're getting there. If love is this energy that doesn't understand time, and we reincarnate or something happens to our life force energy, right? Because again, energy can't be created or destroyed. Neither can the love between people. I mean, yes, things can get fractured. Yes, things can happen that hurt. Yes, things that happen that make things ugly. But that doesn't change love. It's very possible to stop loving people for sure, but that energy that had once existed was real. Don't gaslight yourself or your experience into thinking that it wasn't, just because it hurt. So that being said, when we meet people and we have a really intense understanding and knowing, and there's a really deep love there, that's the shit that changes the world. And that's the shit you have to be courageous about and keep in mind when you're dealing with people who are unhealed. So I say this because I know it's so difficult at times like now when in the United States, we're very politically divided. Conversations are hard. Tensions are high. And a lot of us think that, our opinions and everything are valid because of someone that we love. We understand them. We love them with everything in us because of that remembering, that connection. And so we convince ourselves it's okay to hate who's in front of us, who opposes those that we love. And because of that, we feel that it is okay to act out of fear. But the thing is, it requires space in your heart to fear and to hate. And that's going to take away from the love, the space that you have for love. And if we're talking about that natural magnetism that occurs in healed, unconditional love, then it just stands to reason that it doesn't make sense to be so fucking mean to everybody or anybody. Like, I get it. Things can be really, really frustrating. And conversations can be really hard when you're really passionate about something. But at the end of the day, if there's someone in your life that you love, reminder to go tell them. And then think about them in the times that there's any pain coming your way. Because I can guarantee you, the sun is gonna burn you a lot faster than any moon ever will. So you may as well be a creature of the light and have it on your side. And I don't mean to say that as a fucking threat, because it sounded like it. But what I just mean is love is the most powerful thing. And it's beautiful. And I am really looking forward to doing episodes like this a lot more often. I think it was naive of me to just be like, what is love? Let's call it this in my first episode. And now I want to make it a tradition to come back to this topic every so often because there's always something new to learn. And on that note, I am going to be taking a break from doing this weekly. I might randomly pop in a video, but nothing's going to be planned until either August or September, because I am in the process of relaunching my business here in Arizona, as well as putting together a really intense and beautiful 3-month-long Functional Flow Academy program. So this is something I'm going to be talking a lot more about in the coming weeks. And I just want to thank you so much for all of your time and your presence and your love. It has been the most healing past few months of coming back to this podcast and speaking with every single one of you, even those of you who have given me some pain, those of you who took time out of your day to bring the opposite of love in here. I'm still really happy to hold this space for all of it. I really am. And I feel so lucky to be here. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Until next time, my loves. XOXO.